Hi, how you doing? I have a number of small tasks to do today. I'm going to check on a few things in the grow room. The Lysianthus are germinating. I have peony seeds on a heat mat that I'm trying to germinate, and so we're going to inspect them. I've got going to take a look at the geraniums that are growing under the grow lights, and I have some geraniums in storage in a paper bag. I thought I'd pull those out, take a look at them. And it's also plant maintenance day today, and so as I was taking a close look at everything, I noticed some mealies on a jade plant, and so I'm going to take care of treat the plant for those mealies. My name is Sharon. I garden on a large yard in a small town in east central Saskatchewan, Zone 3. Welcome to my Sask Garden. I thought I'd start showing you how the ferns are holding up. These are macho ferns. They're not Boston ferns. I don't think there's a lot of difference, although they do appear to be a stronger fern. They're a deeper green, bigger leaves, and they're holding up. They've been in the house now a little over 3 months, I think, and they're holding up pretty good. This one has, if I touch it, there's going to be some dry bits that fall off, and they are still growing. At least they're sucking up the water like there's no tomorrow. I definitely have to water once a week. They're dry by the time I get to them. This one is doing better, and you know what? I think it always did. It always was a nicer plant. But for 3 months in these dry conditions in the house, our indoor humidity is 32%, and so that's pretty dry inside. So considering that, I'm actually fairly happy about them. I've incorporated a saucer within a saucer in here. So there's this big saucer, and then in there, this pot sits inside a small saucer. And in that moat, basically, I have water in there. And so, just move that. And so that bit of water helps with the humidity. I think that actually works pretty good. It would be the same concept as a pebble tray. The pot doesn't sit in water, but it's surrounded by humidity or surrounded by water. And so, I think that works as good as a pebble tray for sure. So on this jade plant, I noticed that I have a crop of mealies starting up. And right now they're just these little white bits, these little white dots. They almost look like they could be aphids, but they're not. They're mealy bugs. And I had an adult here that I was going to show you, and I think I've just lost it now. But most of these little growing points, that's where they like to congregate. Oh. So this white fluffy bit there, that's a telltale sign of mealy bugs. That's what the adults do. And all these little white bits at the top, those are, I don't know, babies or eggs or something, but they will certainly turn into mealy bugs. It could be a good infestation. I think I'm getting it fairly early on, but we're going to take it downstairs and treat it so that I don't get any more. So now that I'm looking at it down here, I can see lots of the adults, and they just come off like that, all cottony, and they're quite sticky. It's quite sticky. And as soon as you hit the adult bug with the alcohol that I'm going to spray it with, they turn brown and they're killed instantly. So my first line of defense against mealy bugs, and you know what? It's worked for me for probably every infestation I've ever had, and I do get them every winter, regardless of spraying the plants before I bring them in. There still seems to crop up with mealy bugs, and why that is, I don't know, but I keep a a spray container of alcohol. This spray container is the kind that you can spray upside down too, because you have to get up underneath the leaves. And I spray, it's 99% isopropyl alcohol, and I spray the plant liberally. And I, look for all the adults, or I try to find all the adults, and make sure I hit them with the alcohol, as well as all the top growth, because of those babies or eggs or whatever they are. And this will be, when I'm done, it'll be pretty much dripping. I'll also just spray the bottom container a bit. I'm not going to repot. I've never found the need to have to repot. So I spray it liberally, and I look for the adults while I'm going. I get in on all of the new growth because they sure like to congregate there. And I go up from underneath and get it, all the while looking for some of those adults. There's one there. Now, as soon as I hit it, that adult turns brown. There's another one down there. And it's not a fast process. You want to do it methodically. Make sure that you're getting the entire plant on the top, as well as from underneath the stems. Won't hurt to do the top of the soil. I have never had to repot. If that's the route you want to go for mealy bugs, you actually have to take it out, wash the roots off, and go about it that way. I have found that the alcohol works great. I treat it once, I put it back in the sun after a day, and then I keep watch. And in a week, if I see any more of those little white specks or an adult floating around, I'll bring it downstairs and I'll do it all over again. I have never had the alcohol hurt a plant, and I use it on, well, certainly on cacti and succulents. A Hoya, the Hindu rope Hoya plant was just full of mealy bugs a couple years ago. That's those curled leaves, and they're tight in there, and so the perfect places for mealy bugs to hide. And so I treated it. I all but dunked it in the alcohol, to be honest, and it's fine. It still hasn't had a re-emergence. I think that time I did have to treat it more than once, but there's just so many places for the adults to hide. So that's all for that. I'm just going to leave it there to dry off and recuperate a bit, and then I'll bring it back upstairs tomorrow. Next, I thought I'd show you the Lisianthus seedlings. I seeded them just about 2 weeks ago now, and they've been germinating fairly steadily for the last, 4 or 5 days, I guess. I think they started at around day 10. And so this is where I've been germinating them, just on the heat mat and with this lid closed. The last few days I've opened the lid and I just kept it on there just askew a bit, just to give it a little bit of air. And one of the reasons is because there's a bit of algae that's started to grow. I'm not too concerned about it. Whenever you have seeds that take a while to germinate in a warm and humid environment, they're going to grow some of that algae. And I think it doesn't matter what kind of soil you use. So I have 2 plantings. This is Corelli lavender, and there is a seedling. See how tiny they are? They are just itty bitty. There's another and another. I think I've counted about 15, and I believe the package was 21 to 25 seed, I think. And in this tray, this little container, I have another package of arena purple, and there is a seedling. This little white thing at the tip, that's still part of the pellet that has not fallen off or removed itself yet. I will not be concerned about that either. But again, I can see, you know, it's hard to tell the green against the algae when they're so small, but I can see at least a 15 in this container as well. I got really excited when I saw this big guy that emerged probably at about day 5 to 7, and I thought, wow, that's really good. They're germinating. It's already germinating. I've not grown Lisianthus before, so I didn't realize just how teeny tiny they actually are. So I don't know what this is. I don't know if it was in the ProMix soil or if it was a seed in the package. There was nothing unusual in the package aside from the pellets, so I just don't know what that is. After it gets another set of true leaves, then I'm going to dig it out and pot it up and see what it comes out to. But I'm happy with this. As I said, I'm not concerned about the algae. I'm going to, now that there's so many have germinated, I'm going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to leave that cover just off a bit, just so it gets still humidity but a little bit of air movement as well. And we'll see how it goes. Lisianthus, from all of my research, likes to grow on, after it germinates on warm, it likes to grow on at a very cool temperature. And down here in my grow room, I've mentioned before that the temperature stays around 15 C. And I have nice bright lights from the grow lights and a cool environment. And so I think they should be okay growing on down here. It's going to take probably about 4 months before they turn into anything half decent. So it's going to be a test of patience for sure. The next thing we're going to look at is these peony seeds. And I've been, since late summer, I've had these, maybe September, I've had some peony seeds in these packages. And they sit on the heat mat in there. They don't need the light. I have the light on for other things. In this is a mixture of silica grit. It's like fine sand, but it's not sand. It's silica grit or chicken grit, and it must be the stuff that you use for chicks because it's very, very fine. I moistened it when I put it in here, and I have not moistened it since. Now, in here I should find 6 seeds, and I'm just going to feel around because, yeah, there's one. I should be able to feel them. So there it is. Now it looks like it hasn't done anything, but I can feel that the seed coat has softened. It's not really hard. I could probably press my finger into it now. I'm not going to because I don't want to wreck anything. There is nothing emerging though that I can tell. It doesn't seem like there's a root coming out anywhere. So the normal course of action for peony seeds is that they would mature on the plant, they would drop, they would still get maybe 6 weeks of warm weather or half decent weather through mid-August and through September before the ground starts to get cold and before they freeze. So that's what I'm trying to mimic. I've had them under the lights there for, I'm going to say, about 3 months, maybe not quite. And now I'm going to put them in the fridge. I'm just going to put them in just like that, and I'm going to just put them in the crisper or somewhere where they don't get in the way. This is the Laura Dessert Peony, or Desert. I think it's Dessert. And I've had these self-sow around that particular peony, and I've allowed a couple to grow, and they do come true. They bloom a Laura dessert peony. So I'm expecting that's what I would get if I can get them to germinate. These are tree peonies. There's tree peony seeds. There's 12 seeds in here, and they're quite a bit bigger. They've really swelled up. I'm going to say they're probably perhaps almost twice the size of when I put them in. Again, I don't see a root or anything like that. I have never germinated these before, nor have they ever self-sown, because I usually pick off the seed pods, but this year I thought that I would try allowing some of them to mature and try growing them. So same thing with the tree peony. I have two different kinds out there, and it's possible that they've cross-pollinated. I don't know. If they germinate, I don't know what I'll get. So that'll be a fun experiment. And but same thing, I'm going to put them in the fridge, and they're going to stay in the fridge now until probably May, I'm thinking. I'll check them periodically to see if a root has or a sprout or something has emerged, because that should be the next step after a cold period, is that something should come out and start to grow, and I'm thinking it's the root. And then under here, I've showed this before, I have 2 pots of lantana, and all of the blooms have now pretty much fallen off. There's these few. This needs to be watered. They're quite dry, but I like to keep them on the dry side, any of the plants that are down here, and I just think that it helps for, you know, not promoting rot. I'm going to try taking cuttings of these in the next few weeks, probably by the end of January. These have a woody stem, not a soft growth stem, so there's going to be a different process here, which I'm thinking is going to involve rooting hormone powder. Anyways, that's how they look. They look, you know, I'm fairly happy with how they look, and we'll see if I can get some cuttings to root. I have 2 pots of these light pink geraniums, and they just keep blooming and blooming. I keep picking them off and they keep blooming, so healthy, I think. In this pot, they were smaller plants, so in this pot is actually 3 different plants, which I can then separate. And also I want to take cuttings of these too. I was just really taken by the color. And if I had a place upstairs to keep them, I'd probably be enjoying the blooms up there. However, they are really liking the grow lights and the cool environment down here. I also keep these on the dry side. Doesn't seem to be bothering them at all. But because the light just doesn't get way down there, there's always going to be some dead growth or some dead leaves and stuff on the geraniums, but there's new growth as well. They're looking good. It's always, I think, good not to allow a plant to have a lot of dead growth around its growing point, because that can just is a place for things to, bugs and mold and mildew and things like that to harbor. So yeah, doing okay. This is my favorite one. I love the color of this. I just love it. And this is one plant, and it is just going to town with blooms. Also, I've noticed, nope, see, that broke off. So I'm going to take a cutting of this one. I'm going to try rooting this one. instead of wasting that. That should be just perfect for cutting. So again, I just take the opportunity to clean off, get rid of some of the old flowers, etc. But I just wanted to show under here all of this new growth that's happening. A new stem has formed. See, I think I cut it down there at one point, and now new growth has pushed from there. And same thing with this. This is pushing out new growth from low growing points. So if you were to cut this all back, which I'm eventually going to do, when I take cuttings, I'm going to cut it all back, but that doesn't mean that you have to toss the rest of the plant, because it's going to continue to grow from that new growth at the bottom. And I'm probably going to have to do those cuttings fairly soon, or I might risk this new growth becoming kind of leggy and not enough light. So I might have to do that within the next week or two. So also in the fall, when I was digging up all the geraniums and getting things out of pots, those geraniums were just so nice. I just couldn't stand throwing them away. So I just laid them, I cleaned off the roots, and I just laid them in this paper yard waste bag. And I'm just gonna, I've not looked at them. They went in completely green. And so I just want to make sure that there's no mold or mildew or anything. They look good. I'm just going to lift that up and see if we can get a shot of what it looks like in there. Of course they've dried and it's about half the volume, but they look good. I'm just going to pull a couple out just to make sure that everything is looking fine. So yeah, this is pretty interesting. It's actually pushed some new growth since I've put it in there, or at least those growing points are still green. The stems are green and supple, and that's what you want. If the stems were dry and brown or blackish, then that would no longer be viable. But these look pretty good. So at this point I could come in and I could remove all of these leaves, but I think I'm going to wait on that until I pot them up. And I'm hoping that new growth isn't recent, because that's usually a sign of, you know, that it's time to pot them up. And now that I'm looking down under here, I'm thinking that that new growth might be fairly recent, because I'm pretty sure it would have dried off after a few months. I'll just check another one. Yeah, same thing. There's new growth there. Everything else looks really good. The stems look good. Nice green supple. It's just the foliage that has, just the leaves that have dried off. It's funny, I picked off all the flowers and all the buds before I put them in this bag, but obviously some bloomed while they were in the bag. I don't remember how many I put in here. Maybe a dozen, I'm thinking. And in my past experience, the smaller ones have a harder time living through the winter in a bag or a box or whatever, and it's these bigger ones that seem to manage that weight a little bit better. But this one looks pretty good too. I don't see any new growth on that one. These are a couple more small ones. There's some new growth on this one and that one, and Geez, maybe that's going to be a sign of an early spring. Wouldn't that be something if they're already pushing growth? So I'm going to just put them back. We have a room under the stairs that's dark all the time and not heated, and so it's fairly cool. It's probably about 15. Sorry, bag is making noise. It's probably about 15 degrees in that room as well. It's a pretty good environment. I have winter geraniums like this in there before, and although I told myself I wasn't going to do it this year, like I said, I just couldn't get rid of them because they were so nice. I did get rid of the white because I didn't like the white blossoms. They really browned as they were drying, and it looked like they were always half filled with dry blossoms, so I tossed those. I'm pretty sure that's all for today. I'm just going to do a little bit of cleanup, but you don't need to watch me do that, that's for sure. I'll just take this opportunity to thank you for joining me these past few months since I've started my YouTube channel. And make sure if you have any questions to leave me a comment, or if you have any suggestions, things you'd like to see me do. I have had a few people tell me a few things that they'd like to see me do, and I do appreciate that. Some of it can't be done now because we're indoors, but you know, I do appreciate it, and I appreciate all the thumbs up and the comments and sharing the videos. You know, that really means the world to me that you're enjoying the content. I think that's all I have to say, except for Happy New Year, and we'll see you again.